All right, so we're just coaches, and we're just going to be reading some Reddit stories and just giving our perspective, answering the questions.
So the first one that I have here is pretty simple. It's how to get started getting fit after 5+ years of inactivity. They say, hello, I'm 23 years old. I am 1.7 meters tall, which my American ass is not sure what that looks like. And they weigh around 65 kilos. They haven't worked, I haven't worked out in any capacity ever since I started university. Before I left for uni, I wasn't super fit, but I had high school mandated PE classes and practiced Taekwondo weekly. Between those and having to walk quite a bit every day, I felt relatively okay fitness-wise. Currently, though, I have a much more sedentary lifestyle, and I don't partake in any sports or physical activities. Walking up and down a flight of stairs tires me, and I don't feel like my mind is quite as sharp as it should be. My sleep schedule is also not consistent. I'd like some advice on where to start when it comes to getting back into shape. I've tried looking into workout routines for beginners, but there's a lot of conflicting and confusing info. So this is a pretty common one, especially for someone who it sounds like had at least a sport when they were younger. It can be really hard to transition from I'm in high school and everyone around me is making me stay active, and then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you have to make yourself stay active. It sounds like he did do Taekwondo at one point. So if this were someone that came to me as a client, what I would start them with is assuming that he did Taekwondo because he enjoyed it. I would start with leaning on that. So what about Taekwondo did you like? Is it realistic to get back into that practice in any capacity? Whether that's going to a class or kind of incorporating some of those skills into your workout program. So I would say the easiest thing is to start with something that you historically have already enjoyed and build from there, and focus your efforts on finding an active hobby. That is the easiest place to get back into things and to be motivated, because it doesn't sound like any of this is workouts are hard. It just sounds like they're a little lost on where to start and how to motivate themselves. So finding something that is already enjoyable, even if it's a new thing, but just finding a physical activity that he enjoys would be the easiest. There is a lot of conflicting and confusing information about workout routines for beginners. The easiest answer is everything works and none of it works, which just means that moving your body consistently in any capacity is going to make you healthier. At the same time, trying to force yourself into a routine that was perfectly designed for someone else with a completely different life. So sounds like he's busy. If he's finding beginner routines that are throwing you into training 6 days a week and meal prepping when he's at 0 right now, that's unrealistic. But all movement works. You're not, unless you have a pre-existing injury or condition, you're probably not going to hurt yourself if you just start gently moving and listening to your body and taking up new sports. If there's an injury concern, then that would be you should reach out to a professional to at least get some assessment. But yeah, just starting moving in any capacity that feels good, feels fun, and don't worry about if it's right, because all movement's good. All movement is valid, and it's all going to get you from point A to point B. Eventually, you can worry about the specifics and perfecting it later. Anything?
Yeah, and just to kind of help get the ball rolling, like you said, you can find a reason to not do everything, because there's going to be somebody out there screaming that something is bad, whether it be food or exercise. They'll say you shouldn't do XYZ 1, 2, 3, but you should do what feels like the least overwhelming or the lowest barrier to entry, and then just kind of build from there. And you can figure out whether it is best for you or not later or as you go. Don't try to take perfect action, take imperfect action, and you'll figure out. It's never going to be perfect, so don't even ever shoot for perfection, but definitely out of the gate, don't. And then, just the lowest barrier to entry, familiarity is good. Like you said, Taekwondo, if they like Taekwondo, they've done it before, do what you've done before rather than starting something brand new. and go from there. Those are all good approaches.
And just because I kind of thought about something when you were talking about it, like we've kind of mentioned before, like our first workout routines were far from perfect. Like I was kind of in the same place. Like I did some random athletic things in middle school and high school, and then was kind of lost in college. And I ended up being forced to be healthy because I started having like kidney failure, high cholesterol at like 18, and medical conditions. So I had to do something. And the first things I was doing, like they were either not the greatest for me, or they were straight from bodybuilding.com, and they were that like meal prep for 5 days at a time and work out 6 days a week. And I remember that I think the only reason that I was able to stick with working out is I looked at that and I was like, yeah, that's not fucking happening. There's no way I'm doing that. So what I did instead was like, I went through their little perfect meal plan. I picked the recipes that I felt like I'd actually eat. I ate those often and kind of like learned how to like vegetables, because I didn't like vegetables at all before. And I took the workout program that was like 5 days a week, and I just wrote each day on index cards, and I just treated it as a rotation. Is like days 1 through 5 might not happen in a week, but I just kind of like every time I worked out, I just flipped to the next index card and I kept going. So for me, a 12-week program took me like 6 months, but it kept me like moving through it. So I kind of took away all the barriers that you will see on like online workouts. Just kind of like I figured that was like a good point to make.
Okay, next question. So this person asked, what are the downsides of splitting a workout program into sessions? So they elaborate. So what's the downside of a workout session, splitting a workout session into 5 20-minute sessions rather than 1.5 hour session? They said too long, didn't read, but it's just the whole question. I don't know if they know what TLDR means. I have a home gym and work from home. Often I'll have 15, 20, 25-minute windows with no work to do throughout my day. However, I also got 4 kids, so I can't work out until after 7 or 8 in the evening, at which point I'm very tired after being up at 6:30 and at it all day with the kids. This results in me always end up not sticking to my workout plan to work out in the evening. Even if I manage it for a while, it robs me of half of the 2 to 3 hours of free time I actually do have if I powered through the tiredness and whatnot. If I could do a warm-up set and then 2 chest exercises in a 25-minute window, and then I'll do a warm-up and 2 shoulder exercises, and so forth. You get the idea. At some point, I'll do my whole... eventually, I'm having a hard time reading the way they wrote it. But basically, they're saying eventually it will accumulate to an hour and a half workout rather than over the course of like little spurts throughout their day, rather than just 1 hour and a half block. There's no downside to this at all, would be my answer. This is a strategy we recommend to people all the time. This is for in their very similar situation. They have a busy day of work. This is a great strategy if you work from home, and if you have kids, like it's tough to just get a full block of like, this is 1 hour, an hour and a half of dedicated me time. It's really hard to do. So you can just split it up you can split it in half. They split it into even more chunks, because that sounds like that's what works for them and it's manageable. And there's literally no downside to it. At the end of the day, you still did this many exercises, whatever kind of workout style it may be, or this many total minutes of working out, however you want to track success as far as like overall movement. So no downside to it.
No.
It's a great approach. It's a good job by them of not being very anti all or nothing, which is one of our big teaching points for all of our clients. You can take the same approach and do it a couple different ways. Like they could probably, what they're doing in an hour and a half, they could probably be more efficient with. Like they probably don't need an hour and a half to do what they're doing. So they could, if they could do an hour block, that might help them. But it sounds like even that is not going to be right. So they might only need like 3 20-minute blocks versus 5 or 6. Yeah. So they could probably make what they're doing more efficient and still do as much as they're doing. But even beyond that, like if somebody works out for, like our workouts are like 45 minutes to 60 minutes, and that's plenty of time. I've seen like world-class athletes do 30-minute workouts, and they're literally world champions. So it's all about doing what you can and being efficient with your time. But even if someone wants to do like a 45-minute workout and they only have 15 minutes here and there, they can split it into 3 parts. Or if there might be days you only have one 15-minute pocket if it's a busier time at work. Okay, just do more high intensity, do intervals, do like circuits if that's not usually what you do, and just pack as much as you can into those 15 minutes or however long it is. There's a lot of different ways you can just do the best you can and make most of the use of your time, whatever your day looks like, and still be successful. Not everyone needs to hash out 2 hours of gym time or 2 hours of workout time. And so it's easy to say, oh, screw it, I don't have a block free, I'll get back to it tomorrow. So this is a great approach that we recommend to anybody, and it's not better or worse, it's just different.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
highly recommend.
Yeah, like he was saying, like we do that with people all the time. Again, I was gonna say the same thing of like the hour and a half workout for some reason has become like that's what we think. That's what a lot of people think their workout needs to be. He probably could make it a whole lot more efficient, unless like if he's like powerlifting, like and he might need 20 of those minutes just for like doing deadlifts, nothing else. So outside of that, like an hour is plenty. The only other thing that I would add is like so when I have a client who I've written them like a 45-minute workout or something, and we decide that they need to break that into 15-minute slots, it ends up being a little bit more by the end of the day than that 45 minutes, only because if you're allowing yourself to like get cold in between, you still have to, every time you do a 15-minute slot, you can't skip the warm up and skip the stretch. So that's the only thing. And usually what I do to try to make it more efficient is like, if their workout was going to be hip dominant and upper push, maybe the first segment or 2 is hip dominant. So that way all they really need to prep is the hip dominant stuff, and they only really need to prep or stretch those parts after that, so you can also kind of split up your stretch. So that would be the only thing, is I've seen people who they do split it up and they're not actually stretching and prepping for each of those 15-minute spots because it can feel really tedious. So that would be, he didn't mention if he was or was not doing that. I would just, for anyone who's considering it, just don't skip the warm up and the stretch to make sure that you're balanced. And that's it.
That's it.
And some short ones today. Okay.
Short and sweet.
Yeah. Well, hope people learn something.
Bye-bye.
Bye.